With that, 12 years ago, I visited Chicago, and I fell in love with the city, and I decided to stay. It is the longest place I have lived my entire life. And so I am particularly proud and privileged to introduce to you a Chicagoan, native Chicagoan, Douglas Conant, who's called Doug, who, as Carol mentioned earlier, is a New York Times best-selling author, a sought-after speaker, and the former president and CEO of Campbell Soup Company. He's a dynamic leader who has held leadership roles at many brands that we love, such as General Mills, Kraft, and the Nabisco Foods Company. Doug currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer of DRC LLC, which is his own company, and it's a leadership consulting firm, which he founded in 2011. He's a very active board member, and we at NOD are extremely proud and feel honored to have him as a member of the board. With that, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Doug.
Man, I wish I had her accent and delivery, but I'm just a typical Chicagoan, and so you're going to have to hear from Chicago then. It's great to be here with my friends from NOD and their friends. I've been blessed to be part of the NOD board now for 8 or 9 years, and it's such worthy work, working shoulder to shoulder with such dedicated and capable people. It's an honor to be here today. I have 3 key thoughts I'll share with you, and I'm going to try and cover a lifetime of corporate learning in 15 minutes, so fasten your seatbelts. But if you had to tweet 3 things, these are the 3 things I would tweet. The first thing is that trust is the one thing that changes everything. My friend Stephen M.R. Covey, the son of Stephen Covey, wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. And that's the world's best subtitle I have ever heard. The Speed of Trust, the one thing that changes everything. If you think about your own personal experience, when you've been in a high-trust group, it's so easy to get your work done. It's so easy to know you have someone that has your back. It's so easy to move forward. When you're in a low-trust situation, it's hard to agree on when the next meeting is and who's going to do what. So we're focused on the right subject here because trust is the one thing that changes everything. And then in terms of building trust, to me, building trust is all about competence and character brought to life by action, over and over and over again. In that sense, trust is built by doing. I remember Stephen Covey, who was one of my mentors, used to say, Doug, you cannot talk your way out of something you behaved your way into. You simply have to behave your way out of it. And we've behaved our way into a low-trust situation, and we have to behave our way out of it. And it's about action. Words, you have to start with words, but it's about action. So the second point, building trust is all about competence and character brought to life by action over and over and over again. In that sense, trust is built by doing. The third thought, to build trust in an organization is a heavy lift. It takes work. One must realize that people are not mind readers. You need to thoughtfully reflect about the contributor you hunger to be as a contributor to that organization. You need to let people know what to expect from you, and then you need to deliver over and over and over again. This is not a seat-of-the-pants exercise, trust building. It needs to be highly intentional. There is no way around it. You can't talk your way out of something you behaved your way into. You have to behave your way out, and you have to do it with great intention. And people are not mind readers. My many friends that I've encountered in the disability community over the last decade hunger for trust, but they are reluctant to declare themselves. People are not mind readers. As much as we'd like to know what's going on in your head and that you have ADHD, as much as people might like to know that, we all feel as if we're getting a sip of water from the fire hydrant of life. The cap is off, it's washing over us. We're just trying to hold our own lives together, our families, our friends, our communities. As much as I want people to know I care, and I do care, I don't have capacity to. So if you want me to understand your situation, you better be damn clear about it. I don't see any other way around it. So those are my 3 key thoughts. I was at Campbell Soup Company for a decade. I joined in 2001 after having a real strong run working for KKR, of all things, as president of Nabisco Foods Company, where we, right after Barbarians at the Gate. So it was like the Wild West of the corporate world. I went to Campbell Soup Company in 2001, and we were on poor strategic footing, poor financial footing, and I had never encountered such a toxic culture, low trust culture. It was not good, and it didn't help that we were headquartered in the poorest, most dangerous city in the United States, Camden, New Jersey, 75,000 people, 70 murders a year in Camden, New Jersey. Difficult situation. On strategic footing, we had decided we were going to grow through acquisition because we were running an old economy canned soup company. And we stopped paying attention to our core business. We started acquiring new businesses, didn't adequately integrate them in, and then we acquired more and more and more until we collapsed because we weren't leveraging our corporate infrastructure to support these brands in a meaningful way. So everything started to come undone. We lost half our market value in 1 year in 2000. We made some bad business decisions trying to stay afloat. We were a consumer products company, and we cut all our consumer product spending. And then we needed more money, so we cut all our R&D. And R&D innovation is the lifeblood of a consumer packaged goods company. And then we continued to decline. So then we said, well, we have too many people here. We've got to reduce the people. And we had layoff after layoff. Everyone in the organization had someone to the left of them or to the right of them that was summarily let go in a whirlwind of a time. I had just come fresh off of Barbarians at the Gate, and it was the Wild West at Nabisco. And this was even more challenging. It took us a decade, but we did behave our way out of it. But it did take a decade. And I have just a few thoughts to share with you about our solution. The first piece is that it's all about the people. It's focused. It's all about the workforce. As CEO, if there were 1,000 decisions made in an hour, I was in the room for one of them. The other 999 were made by people who weren't in the room. I wasn't in the room. We were totally reliant on our workforce to make thoughtful, intelligent decisions that represented our company well. So I begin and end with the concept that it's all about the people. And so what does that mean? That means that you need to be quite clear with what your employees should expect, and then you need to deliver on those expectations over and over and over again. And so at Campbell, we declared a commitment to revitalizing our company over a decade, and we explained that this is going to be a heavy lift. It would take us 3 years to go from being the poorest performing food company in the world of the top 20 to being competitive, and that we were all in it together, and we were going to follow a process that honored people. And that was the cornerstone of what we offered. We said, we can't expect you to honor our agenda as an enterprise if we don't demonstrate to you that we're going to honor your agenda as a person. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. So we had a lead from in front on this. We said, we have to honor your agenda. And we committed to doing that. And we weren't built for it, but we committed to doing it, and we did it the best we could. And there's no substitute for declaring yourself and then doing what you say you're going to do. And if you make a mistake, acknowledging it and said, well, we've learned, we'll make a new mistake, but we're not going to make this mistake again, and then you just soldier forward. So we declared a sense of direction that was committed to, over the decade, building an extraordinary food company. And we talked about what our mission was, what our values were. We also talked about not just the what, but the how we wanted people to be treated. We designed what we called the Campbell leadership model, which had 6 expectations of all of our leaders. And it applied to the receptionist in the front hall at Campbell Soup Company as well as to me. And everyone had feedback on those 6 dimensions. The core of it, the core of the model was inspire trust, because it's the one thing that changes everything. And it is only brought about in the doing and the building. So we declared a what and a how, and then we worked it, and we worked it hard, and we made mistakes. But when we made mistakes, we acknowledged them and we moved on. We adhered to the direction we set, and as I said, I made mistakes, we made mistakes, but then we learned from them and moved on. I've learned mistake management is really quite easy. You acknowledge it, you remediate it, and you move on. You can't fix it. One of the tenets we had at Campbell was about being tough-minded on standards and tender-hearted with people. I grew up in a corporate environment which we're going to be tough, you know, tough in the market. We got to compete. And I agree with that. You got to be tough. But I also, I don't see any problem with also being compassionate. You can be tough on standards and tender with people. I had Robert Schuller, a Cathedral City minister, sent me a letter, and I'd been talking this tough-minded on standards and tender-hearted with people, and he sent me a letter with his book, and he said, you stole my book title. And he had written a book called Tough-Minded Faith for Tender-Hearted People. And I was able to get back to him and demonstrate that I'd been talking about tough-minded on standards before his book was published. So I won the argument. But the principle is, I stand by it today. You need to be tough-minded on standards. I don't care if you work in an NGO or in a corporate setting or in the government or in the media. You have to be tough on standards or you won't have your job very long. I mean, that's just a reality. But I'm telling you, if you're not tender-hearted with people at the same time while you're adhering to those high standards, you won't have your job very long either. So it's not one or it's not either or, it's both and. Jim Collins calls it the genius of the and. We're going to be tender-hearted, we're going to be tough-minded on standards and tender-hearted with people. And then we had to behave our way through all this, and I'll just give you 2 examples. We focused on building a culture of excellence that celebrated not just what was not working, which is what corporate people are pretty good at. You can look at a spreadsheet and there's the mistake and get that fixed. What I found, even when I was right after Barbarians at the Gate at Nabisco and when I got to Campbell, was that even in those very dysfunctional times, 8 out of 10 things were being done right. But nobody was paying any attention to what was working. Everybody was just looking for what wasn't working. So we started celebrating what worked, as well as dealing with what didn't work. And I started a habit of handwriting. I know it sounds archaic today. I still do it. Handwriting thank you notes to people. And I had a 2.5-hour commute to and from work every day. And I had a driver, but my assistant would pull everything off our portal of what had gone on that day, and I would read it all on the way home, and on the way back to work the next day, I would handwrite 10 to 20 notes to people about what they did right. They weren't gratuitous notes. They were, hey, I see you delivered this project on time, under budget. Thank you. Or, hey, you just launched this new ERG group. How great is that? Keep me posted, or whatever. And 10 to 20 a day, and when I retired, somebody said, well, how many notes did you write? Because by then they were all over our world in the Campbell Soup Company, and we did the math, 10 to 20 a day, 2 employees over a decade, and it was well over 30,000 notes. And we only had 20,000 employees. And so wherever you went, in Papua New Guinea, in the little regional headquarters in a cubicle, you would see somebody had a handwritten note from me saying, thank you for this project or something. Do you think the people that worked for me noticed that all their people were getting notes from the CEO? Yeah. We set a tone. We walked the talk. And then we challenged the managers and the leaders of the organization to get in step in ways that work for them. I didn't expect everybody to do thank you notes. Some people managed by walking around. Some people handled things differently in staff meetings. But we celebrated what worked, reinforcing the standards, tough-minded on standards, but also celebrating the people and being tender-hearted with the people. We also made tough calls. I believe this is true. In the first 3 years, we let go 300 of the top 350 leaders of the company. That's unusual. We gave them time to get with the program. We said, here's what we want to do, and here's how we want to do it, and we hope you're on the bus with us. We hope you're along for the ride. But quite frankly, if you're not, we have to make another decision. And we'll help you. If you don't want to be here, that's fine. But this is the way we're going to do things. And for the first 2 years, some people self-selected out. But by the third year, if we weren't hitting stride, not only with moving forward with our business proposition, but also with our culture building efforts, we had to make tough calls on leaders. And we turned over 300 of the top 350 leaders of the company. I was a first-time CEO, and I didn't know a lot about being a CEO at that point, but I was learning quickly, and I knew if we didn't make changes in the talent, we weren't going to get the culture right. And how much time do you think you have when you're in your job? How much time do you think you have before people start questioning you? I'll tell you, it's 3 years at the outside. The first year, it's the other person's fault. You know, I'm doing the best I can. Look at the mess they left. The second year, well, we've got a plan. We're working it. We see some green shoots. We're gaining momentum. The third year, you own it. You own it. And so for our company, to represent our full company, we had to get our credibility straight by year 3 with our marketplace and with our board and with our employees. So by the third year, we had to make a lot of tough calls. Of the 300 we let go, 150 people were promoted from within. So 200 people knew the company well, but we had to go outside and hire 150 more. A challenging situation. I would tell you, we tracked employee engagement while we went through this entire process. We partnered with Gallup, and this was back when employee engagement was just coming into the workforce in a meaningful way in 2001, and we had the lowest employee engagement in the Fortune 500. And I asked the person working on it with us, well, how bad is it? How many companies have you done? And he said 300. And we were the worst. We had an engagement ratio of 2 to 1 of Fortune 500 companies. 2 people engaged and 1 person not. So a third of our workforce was not engaged in the work, basically looking for another job. By the time I retired, we had the best employee engagement in the Fortune 500. A canned soup company being compared to a buggy whip headquartered in Camden, New Jersey. We had engagement ratio of 23 to 1, which was the best in the Fortune 500. Of our top 350, 7 years after we went through all the churn, we had the highest engagement ratio they'd ever tracked for a large group. Of our top 350, our engagement ratio was 77 to 1. So we had 4 people who weren't engaged, but it really didn't matter. World class for Gallup is 12 to 1. Think about it. If you have a work group of 13 people and 1 person isn't fully engaged, you're going to be okay because you have 12 people lifting with you. And so our goal was to get to world class at 12 to 1. And we expected it would take us a decade. It took us 5 years with very intentional practices. I could go on, but that's the story. Our strategic performance ultimately was quite strong. We built 3 core businesses, world's largest, most profitable soup business, obviously, and Simple Meals business. Also the world's largest, most profitable vegetable juice business in the world. Here you would think of V8. Also the third largest and most profitable baked snack business in the world. Here you would think of Pepperidge Farm. So we had a great run strategically, financially. We grew earnings every year. We had record high cash flow, record high return on invested capital. We grew share in our markets. And we had total shareholder returns that were 2x the S&P 500 during a very tumultuous decade. Employee engagement, as I said, was not just good, it was spectacular. It was the most gratifying part of my work, was helping the individuals in the company have the energy to go fight the good fight every day. And I'd like to think that our security guard in Camden, well, she was the receptionist, but she was like a lioness. Sherry would say similar things about me as your security person said about you. You have to walk the talk every day. You have to declare yourself and you have to walk the talk, and you have to be unwavering with it. If I had one last thought, I think in order to do all this work and to build trust, you need to be increasingly well anchored in who you are and what you stand for. And you have to find a way that works for you to declare yourself with the people with whom you live and work. They need to know they are not mind readers. When you started telling people you had ADHD, it changed your world, didn't it? And I think we all have to challenge ourselves to stand up and be counted. It's a scary thing. Therefore, we need to be very well anchored in what we do. And then I think you have to walk the talk. And on that note, I thank you for your time, and I hope I didn't go over my time. Thank you very much.